This year what we're doing is that we have both guests of honor, so Chris Huelsbeck and Angel McCoy. Thank you. And for the panel we selected the Finnish counterparts to the guests of honor, so that we have more people to talk about things and more interesting discussion. So thank you for coming, and let's start with making people work. So I would like you guys to actually introduce yourselves. So tell everyone who you are and something interesting that you have done. So we can start with Jonne maybe?
Hi, my name is Jonne Valtonen, and I started doing music for in this computer demo scene. I did music in Future Crew as a Purple Motion alias, and that's somehow people remember from that. But after that I started working game musics, and I've been doing that for a long time now, and started to do... Is it too long? No. I started for the Remedy Entertainment, did Death Rally and Housemarque. I did Alien Incident and so on and so on. And I did music for this wonderful game called City Skylines, and Albion Online we recorded on Prague, this orchestral thing. And I've done music for Sekä and Namco and all everybody, I think.
I'm Chris Huelsbeck, compose music for games for now over 31 years, and started on the Commodore 64 and the Amiga, and best known projects are things like the Jonne Sisters and Tracon, and I'm still doing music in games these days, but I'm also maintaining and enhancing the stuff that I've done in the past, and I've now run 4 successful Kickstarter campaigns to create special versions of, for example, Tracon music, which the most recent one was recorded last week in Norrköping in Sweden. Was a large orchestra, and I think that sums us up pretty well.
Hi, I'm Angel McCoy, and I'm a game writer, storyteller. You would probably know me most from my Guild Wars 2 work. I've been at ArenaNet for about 10 years, working on the living story of the ongoing game for Guild Wars 2. Prior to that, I did a lot of tabletop role-playing writing for companies like White Wolf and FASA and a whole bunch of others that I'm not going to remember right now, but I've been writing for about 20 years total professionally as a game writer, and that's about it.
Hello, I'm Ville Vuorela. Some here know me as Burgeri. I'm probably best known to this audience for my role-playing games Rider and Stalker, which I have written and published through my own company. But what this audience maybe doesn't know is that I've been a mobile game designer since 2004. I'm also the concept and scriptwriter behind many Housemarque's more recent games, and I'm currently the lead game designer at Space Nation.
Thank you. So, as you noticed, we have people from audio side and then mainly creative writers. So our theme is sort of the aesthetics of games and creative work in general. So things that you all have in common. So my question is, it is creative work. When you start working on something for a new game or a new world, how do you get to know it? Like, what is your system of kind of going into the world and understanding what this world is about, what this game is about? And just, how do you do it?
Do I start?
Yeah, like anyone who wants
I thought that if we do some kind of, but I can do it. Well, usually I ask as much information about the game as possible. Sometimes the companies have a lot material and a lot of written story sides and artwork and this kind of stuff, even playable game demos. And sometimes it's only like text files that these are brave young soldiers going into battle, so make it 2 minutes. So it really depends. It can be everything but I try to get as much information as possible and try to submerge myself into the game and the feeling, and then try to think what the producers are going after.
What he said. No, I often also request if they have it like playable demos so I can play the game myself. If there's like an early version of it, or like storyboards, if the graphic designers have already made some, you know, example graphics, stuff like that. I'm usually very visual, working to visuals. I like to. If that's not available, then I can also go with a story.
Yeah, it's been a really long time since I worked on a game that I wasn't already completely immersed in, but back in the day, or even now, if we're working on a release that has a bunch of lore in it that I haven't looked at for a while, the things that I'll do is I'll go and I'll read the wiki, I will talk to the people who worked on it, and I'll watch a lot of YouTube videos about the game just to see what those players think and what they like, and what they have to say about it. So.
Alright, so I have 2 different answers to that. One of them is that if you're talking about the worlds of my role-playing games, then it's simply a matter of me of going into that world and looking around and writing down what I see. But when it comes to professional game design, then, as they already stated, game design doesn't happen in a vacuum. So even if I would be at the very early concept writing stages, let's say at Housemarque, for example, they already know what the business goals of the game are. And whatever world and whatever story there's going to be will have to fit into those parameters. So that's the information I can then toy with. And it's often an iterative process. You don't get it right the first time around, but it's important that you get something, because once you have something, that can be iterated and improved on.
So do you have any advice for people if someone would hire you to do creative work on their game? What should they provide? So is it more about the visuals, as Chris said, that he's kind of a visual person, but have you had like really excellent sets of material, or then really awful sets where you have to do kind of a lot of the work by yourself?
Yeah, I've experienced both sides. Sometimes the producers give you the creative freedom to just look at material that's available and then come up with something. Other times they have ideas of what they think it should be, and then, as you said, the negative experience is if they can't quite articulate what they want, and then you do some work and it's not what they had in mind, and it becomes complicated. But yeah, so those have all happened. I would definitely recommend for producers that they gather as much material as possible, and also hopefully give the composer more freedom of choosing what they think is right for the visuals or for the story.
I'm not sure I have anything to contribute to that.
Alright, so if I was in a situation that I am controlling an IP and there's already existing material and existing canon, and then I have a new writer who's coming into that project, then it's of course very important to familiarize him with what already exists there, what are the limits of the canon, so what are the things that you absolutely cannot do, and then all of settings, all genres, they have these certain kind of unwritten goals or mood goals. And it's very important that the writers understand that, because that then gives them the creative platform from which to inspire the new stuff.
Yeah, I've also experienced both sides. And sometimes it's very strict what the producers might want, and they send, basically they send sound files and they want pretty much something like this. Or then they can give you total freedom. But that's also a bit scary thing, because I've noticed that there isn't ever a total freedom available. There is always an idea or some kind of idea what should go to the music. So trying to fish that out from the producers or the persons who decide that and sort of take liberties around that setting. I think that works best for me at least.
And there's a huge difference in whether you're working on something that you're personally inspired to do, because then you can pretty much trust that this person's head is just waiting to explode into a wonderful kaleidoscope of creative ideas. But for example, if you are a professional game designer and then somebody tells you that, okay, our game deals with women's fashion accessories and you're going to create a world, a story around that, then that's the time when your professionality is really being tested, because you can't just say that this is not really my gig, because they always have to be it.
Yeah. I also had the situation where the producer actually had a very specific idea of what they wanted, and then I did it exactly like that, and then they said, it doesn't feel right, and then eventually I did my very own thing, which I thought was appropriate, and they were blown away, and they didn't not even conceive that that could work. So when you sometimes you do like completely different approach, and then it works too.
Yeah, it's easier to be forgiven than to get the permission.
Yeah, true.
So kind of hinging on what Ville said, so how do you stay inspired? Like if you get the women's fashion accessories game and they're like, do the thing you do for this world, and you're like, no, I can't, but what helps you out?
Should I start?
Yeah.
Oh yes, you can. And sometimes it's not about inspiration, sometimes it's not about fun and enjoyment, sometimes it's hard work, blood, sweat and tears. So if you run a blank on ideas, you look at what other people have done, you look at the inspirational material, you look at the things that the customers expected to look at. So for example, in this particular case, your average player would probably be a Kardashian show fan. So yes, you will be watching Kardashian, you will be figuring out what makes this show tick, and you will be working on that. And hopefully, even if you don't really get inspired as such, you do get insights. And you are then working from those insights on, and then it's a matter of your skill, ability and professionalism that you can take it for.
Sometimes you just have to push through because you have to realize that it's a job and this is how you're making your living. And so even if you're working on something that doesn't necessarily inspire you, you still want to put your whole heart and soul into it and try to get to the place where you can produce something that is going to amaze the consumers.
I think in a way this relates to like writer's block, where you're like sitting there and nothing is happening and the deadline is approaching and everything gets very nervous. And in situations like that, I sometimes do really radical things like, oh yeah, deadline is tomorrow, I'll go to the movies. I watch a movie, and usually after I come back from the theater, I sit down and bam, it's right there.
That's amazing.
Yeah, like you said, I think also that it's just like working, sitting down and start working and finding an angle that's interesting, and because no matter what you do, you're going to use your time for it, so why not do it very well and get some kind of thing that inspires you. And I think inspiration is a bit bad word even. It's more like you get into the flow and you get into it, and then it sort of starts happening, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you're writing for yourself, then you can have a writer's block and feel artistically angsty about it. But if you're writing professionally, then if you get a writer's block, then you write something.
Yeah.
Just something is to get through that, and then you iterate on that probably not so very good piece of thing you have done.
That actually relates. Sometimes I also write something that at first I think is pretty bad, and then eventually it becomes something. But at least when you get started, that's probably getting into the process.
I think that's also professional thing is that you do something and you notice that it's bad, but then you notice the potential on it, so you start working on it, and then it sort of gets forward, I guess.
Good way of saying.
I think the challenge is also important, to challenge yourself professionally and artistically. If you are just always doing the stuff that you love, then you're not going to grow as much. So it's good to stretch your boundaries.
And there's always the secret weapon of discussing things with others.
So let's move away from like difficult work, like things that you really need to get inspired to get things going. So do you have personal favorites of worlds or games that you have worked on? The ones that really got you going?
I think eventually everything got me going when you just work it and find the essence of things and things crystallize in your head. Suddenly you know what you are about to do after, like you said, a lot of blood and sweat and tears. So then it sort of crystallizes, and I think that's like the thing that keeps going the most, at least for me.
Yeah, I agree. Just about everything I worked on, I look back on very fondly. And, on Guild Wars 2, I worked on that for 10 years. So that's something I've loved all along, and that has never changed. I think once you are actually working on a project, when you start approaching it, you get sort of emotionally involved in it, no matter what it is. And that doesn't go away. It's kind of like a relationship that you have with this product that you're working on, because you know it so well. You have to know all the little pieces, and you have to, and the characters, well, from a writer's point of view at least, the characters become people to you. So.
Yes, and I would say that after one role-playing game, 2 role-playing supplements and 2 novels set in the world of Pridor, it's fairly easy to see what gets me going.
No, I agree.
So if you got to work on anything, like you could just choose, what world or game would you choose? Do you have a dream assignment of what you could, or maybe who you could be working with?
That guy over there.
Okay. Yeah, I've been privileged to work with him.
I'm available.
I will remember that.
Well, there are always like franchises that you see where other people have done amazing works, and then you think like, wow, I would have liked to contribute to that. And for me, one of them is probably in the last few years the Uncharted series that had like really good music and sound, and there's a bunch of other ones too.
Yeah, I've always had a dream of writing for Lara Croft. I always thought that would just be the coolest. And that's probably never going to happen in my lifetime unless maybe, you guys know somebody there can give a good word for me. But I think she has been around for so long, and she's such a rich character that would probably be my dream.
Yeah, well, there are 2 variations of this theme. One of them is that playing Witcher 3 and thinking, oh, I wish I could have been part of writing this. And the other one is playing Skyrim and wishing that, oh, I wish I could have written something for these people.
I guess like these big open world kind of games are like Fallout. I totally love that game. Love to do that. But basically anything that has like interesting stories and huge worlds.
So this is kind of related to the last question. So once you have been working on a game or a world, can you still enjoy it? I know that for me at least, if I play games at work to do like work kind of stuff and research, I can't enjoy them the same way as I would have otherwise. So do you kind of have the same effect?
For me, yes. I mean, well, the answer is no. Yes, it's the same as for you. I find it, I spend so much time during the day working on Guild Wars 2 that by the time I get home, I just don't have the energy to actually play anymore. But that doesn't mean that I don't enjoy the game, I just enjoy it differently. Now I enjoy the creative side of it, creating it for other people, and then I also enjoy seeing and hearing about how people are enjoying what I've created. And so for me it just becomes more of a creative process as opposed to enjoying playing process. So the enjoyment is still there, it's just different.
I had game projects where I couldn't play it after 4 years, and because I thought like, oh, I didn't do such a good job on this. And then I go back years later and play it and think like, hey, it was actually really good. So, but it's when you work on most games nowadays take like years to complete, and by the end it can happen that you're quite sick of the process.
Yeah, and then you know the music so well, and you really get bored with the music as well. Because I mean, when you work, you can try it. You can listen to one piece like 8 hours a day for half a year, so then you can sort of think how well you can judge it. I guess at some point you sort of lose the novelty of it, and then you just try to like really believe that this is a great idea and just do it as well as I can. And then after a year, actually, I've noticed that that's like the golden rule of time. Then you can sort of understand what you actually did. I think. I didn't answer any questions, but that just blurted out, sorry.
Yeah, discussion is good. So.
Yeah, well, I work, well, as far as role-playing games are concerned, then the answer would be obviously not. I do play my role-playing games quite a bit, but when it comes to video games, well, I do mostly mobile games, so the production cycles are short. And there might be some really engaging core mechanic that appeals to me, even though I'm working during the day. I mean, well, basically imagine Tetris. I can imagine the inventor of Tetris still playing Tetris, because there are enough variables that he can't know beforehand what will happen in this particular session. But if it's something scenario-based, then after you have written that scenario yourself and you do know all the ins and outs and cheats and weaknesses, then playing that tends to burn me out.
Yeah, I mean, in Guild Wars 2, every scenario that we create, I play through probably 100 times in the process of testing and writing the dialogue and all of that. So I've just played through it so many times by the time we're done that it's not that interesting to me anymore after that.
But that doesn't mean that it's good, that you sort of still have to sort of, then you know that it's good, and now it's as good as I can make it, and it's...
Absolutely, yeah, that's why we go over it so many times, is to make it as good as we possibly can. Yeah, and I'm waiting for that year to go by, so that then I can go back and play it all and with fresh eyes and really enjoy it. Yeah.
So for the audience, we will have time for your questions in the end. So if you have anything in mind, just hang on to it and you will be able to ask it. So then I have like a specific question for the writers. So usually how much freedom do you have when you're writing something? Are you asked to do something like plot twists? Or is it just like do whatever? Like how does it usually go?
So as a team, we develop the story on Guild Wars 2. We develop the story where it's going, and then each of the writers is assigned a different portion of the script to write. We have a lot of freedom at that point to write within the story beats. So the dialogue comes straight from us. Then it goes through a process of feedback from a bunch of other people on the team, including like my boss and his boss, and other members, other designers on the team. Everybody gets a chance to poke at it and make suggestions. But the initial writing is pretty free. We get to be pretty free with it.
Well, there's not much to add to that, especially if you're doing it at the concepting stage when the client usually has all the understanding of their like business and marketing goals. Then you have initially a lot of freedom, but the underlying restrictions and client requirements, they are there. It may just take a few iterative cycles for them to come to the front. So sometimes you actually have to, experiment. I'm writing this to see where the limits actually are, what will the client tolerate and what not.
Yeah. I'm a fan of fart jokes, and they never make it past feedback, sadly.
Oh, damn.
I know. Everybody loves fart jokes. I don't get it.
So the same for composers. So music is a difficult topic to discuss with someone who doesn't know like the vocabulary associated with it. Is it usually a difficult thing to try, kind of discuss with someone what they want and what they want you to do? Because I know I've been working with Jonne. I'm awful at that because I'm like, the music thingy, do it like this, and then he does awesome things. But it sounds like he has to do most of the work.
Yeah, for me it's like if it's described on an emotional basis or something like that, it works quite well. But when it becomes technical or when producers start to micromanage and they're not musicians themselves or there's like a difference, then it becomes very difficult.
Yeah, agreed. I think just like talking with the person and sort of trying to learn hers or his or mindset and sort of try to find the limits and what is sort of should be fine, then I guess you eventually, sometimes you need a lot of time to do that and sometimes it's more quicker to understand what they sort of want. So, and like you guys gave me a lot of freedom and that was great. I was a bit nervous actually because there was so much that I was waiting for some kind of hammer to drop and no, this has to be like this. But no, it was very, very, very nice and interesting. I'm very proud of the music section in the game, but yeah, I guess just discussing about it. But the biggest problem I guess is that if they are not don't know the language or they know very little, and then it sort of gets very confusing how to sort of find the actual thing, because sometimes even if they talk about instruments, they might not actually mean the instrument, and it's sort of trying to prove that out. But otherwise, then when you sort of know the same language, then I think it gets easier.
Can I tell an anecdote?
Yeah, sure.
Well, back in the Paleolithic Stone Age, I was working on digital chocolate on a game called Mafia Wars 2. And the music writer for that game was Henri Sorvali, the songwriter and drummer for Fintroll, the heavy metal band, but also a very all-around musician. And we had a great musical creative session so that I described the scene and focusing on things that if you enter that scene, what would you smell and how would things feel and that kind of stuff. And he was basically just playing away on a synthesizer, and he changed from this one kind of jazz to another kind of jazz when I mentioned cigarette smoke and those sort of things. And it was a wonderful, wonderful session. And I have to say that he also appeared to be some kind of a miracle worker, like a jukebox with an endless amount of musical atmospheres that I could just tap in that, okay, add cigarette smoke, add casino play chips. And there's always something new that comes up.
Henry's cool.
So then the next question would be, how did you end up doing this work? Was it your dream always? Did you, from a tiny kid, aspire to be what you are now, or did it just happen?
Well, actually, I've always wanted to be a composer. I never really wanted to do anything else. And we got the first Commodore 64 in our block, and we played a lot of games. And it had this music software called Music Studio or something, drag the notes with the joystick and then you make music. And no. I know. I was too little. I don't understand coding that much yet. But then came trackers and this kind of stuff. So I sort of I played piano and did all the classical stuff as well. But mostly then I get into this future crew thing and we started to do this kind of electronic stuff and that sort of took away. So that's how I get into the games, because a lot of game people are from the assembly side and from there, and I did those. But that's what I wanted to do. Studied more and studied to be a composer, and I don't know, I guess I'm a composer.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I just wanted to do electronic music. That was my dream as a teenager, and then started to do music with the Commodore 64 because it was the best entry for the cost to make electronic music, and then got into gaming just because, well, I was also a gaming fan, but because a friend of mine programmed a new game and needed music and I provided that for him, so that's how I got into it.
Yeah, I've wanted to be a writer all my life, pretty much since I was a kid. The surprising part of it is the game writing aspect for me. That's not to say that it snuck up on me or anything like that. I actually started pursuing writing in games as soon as I discovered games, which I did as an adult. I didn't discover role-playing or video games until I was grown, and that's partly because I'm old. But once I did, it was just a natural progression. The door opened for me because I owned a game store in Virginia, in the United States, with some friends of mine. And so I started going to conventions, and I met some people, and I started writing in the games industry. And it gave me an outlet for storytelling and creativity, and that was really what I wanted to be doing.
Oh dear. Well, I always thought that to become a game designer you would have to also be a programmer, and you would have to know all sorts of strange and intricate and magical languages that make computers do what you want. So it was never really on the table, but I was an avid tabletop role player, and of course I've written my own games, and a couple of years after writing and publishing Pridor, the games director of Suma Interactive met me and asked if I wanted to become a game designer at Suma. And then I said yes, very baffled. And then I've been a game designer ever since.
Check.
So kind of along these lines, well, I don't know if we can give any tips on this, because you got into game designing so easily, it sounds, but if people would want to be like game designers, writers, composers, do you have any tips on how they could like move towards that goal? Like practice, making connections, what's your tip?
Samples of work, because that's also the secret of my easy access into the industry. I mean, at the time there was no such thing as game development education. It just didn't exist, so there were no professional game designers anywhere. So therefore, if you're a new game designer, what you have to be able to show that, okay, I can do design documentation, and in my case, okay, here are 250-page book of game design documentation, and that was kind of my work sample.
Yeah, I would recommend, if you want to be a game writer of some sort, to start writing reviews for some of the online game sites. Write reviews and write articles and make samples. A lot of people are very afraid to just write a sample that isn't for a company or anything. But if you write something up, it doesn't have to be for a company. It's just to show what you can do. So pretend you're making a game and write up what you would do. Write some dialogue, write some design documentation, and put it in your portfolio, and people will see that.
Yeah, for the sound and music in games, there is actually now education options that we didn't have when we started out, or at least I. So I'm fully self-taught, but you can actually go to like media colleges around the world and learn game sound if you're interested. And also, since music is produced like any other music, be it like film composition or pop music or whatever, you have a lot of options now to get educated.
Yeah, actually, my goal always was that I try to be as good of a composer as I can be, and then I can sort of
Currency.
mitä?
Currency.
Valuuttaa sitä. Then I can sort of then I can take part from this high topic and sort of fit it there, so I can do different things from it. So that's I just try to be as good of a composer as I can, know the stuff, how to work with different kind of medias, and then try to improve on my human skills.
So that way you also have like online demos that people might find and think like, hey, I want to work with that person. The other thing that I wanted to mention is networking is so important, and that's, in fact, for me personally, not many times that I sent in a demo reel of some sort and got work through that. It's most of the times just like having connections with people, and they start to think like, oh, I like this person, I want to work with that person.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I guess really you really should have time to meet a lot of people and be sort of social in that aspect. I mean, I don't know, because everybody's doing music these days, I guess. I think your grandmothers are doing Fruity Loop techno secretly somewhere and then trying to pitch for a game. So it's
on
like
an iPad.
On an iPad, yeah. So I mean, you can get lost in the huge amount of material, but by having an actual human interaction, I think that's a big plus to just continue.
Conventions are great for that. Go to conventions, talk to people, talk to the people that are in the booths for their game company. Just talk to them.
And since I know this is a very difficult thing for most Finns to do, the usual good starting point is that you ask them to present their project to you. And that's how you get the conversation going.
Not really, yeah.
Okay.
When you are working on something, you're really into it, you're in the flow, and then you need, of course, to kind of wind down a bit, have some free time. Do you have something certain that helps you relax, like get out of the work mode into the free time mode, music, writing, something?
Not possible.
I have 3 cats. And so I usually just play with my kitties or let them sit on me. Sometimes, I'll have one on my head and one in my lap, and then we watch television together. And that's my brain off mode.
I have played 2,250 hours of Skyrim.
I also have a cat, and she actually lets me know that it's time to take a break.
Well, I have a dog also, so I have to be social with her a bit too. Yeah, I mean, it is quite hard to turn your brain off. I mean, if you're intensively thinking about something for a month, so trying just to switch it off, it's not very easy. But maybe I'll try cats.
Try cats, yes, highly recommended.
And now I'm just thinking about Skyrim with a cat on top of your head. So, when you start working on something new, do you have a favorite phase of the project? Because I know in game design, my favorite phase is when you can just like brainstorm, throw ideas. You don't have to do any actual concrete work yet, or like settle down on an idea. And I love that the most. And I have this theory that it might be the best part in almost any creative project. But how is this for you guys?
My favorite is actually two things, when I start and when I finish. And what's in the middle is sometimes I don't like.
I don't know. For me, the middle is my favorite part, because that's when I'm alone with my thoughts, with the story, with the characters, and I can actually start getting into constructing the dialogue and constructing the story, and that's what I love best. I'm pretty much a loner at home. You'd never guess it here, but because I've had people around me the whole time. But I just love those creative times when you're alone and you're building something.
Well, I have a love-hate relationship with that early stage of the project concepting, which is when basically you don't have to worry about the budget, and you're basically working on a blue skies thing. You can make anything happen on paper, and I love it because it's well, you can let your imagination run rampant, and you can realize your most deepest dreams. And then I hate it because it never survives the first contact with the production team. And you see that it all gets cut up and shackled.
Shackled? That's a great word.
I guess my favorite part is when I finally realize what to do. How I approach things. It's just like you throw a lot of marbles up there and start gazing if something makes sense. And usually throwing marbles to the floor doesn't make sense if you're but when you actually get that, there's this kind of actual realization, like a big idea of suddenly everything just blah 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 goes there. Then that's like the best feeling ever.
Yeah, when suddenly everything comes together and now it makes sense.
Yes.
Yes, this is what I wanted to do. Yeah.
Are you currently working on something you would like to share? So this is the part where you can talk as long as you like on the thing you're the most excited about now. So what are you working on?
What am I working on right now? Well, one thing is, as I mentioned, that bonus album that I'm doing, and I'm going back to my original Amiga sound tool and stuff like that, and that is very interesting, rewarding and frustrating at the same time, because this tool is so old. I'm so used to now having everything very easy, and now it's very complicated again. But at the same time also I'm finding I have now enough time has passed that I find it actually rewarding to do something with the limitations that are there, and so that has been fun.
I've just started working full-time with my own game company. I left ArenaNet, and I am very excited about this project. It's a 2D puzzle adventure game. We've been working on it for about 4 years, and we've also got a novel going, which I've been writing myself. We've got a webcomic that we wrote sort of as a team, and that we have an artist from New York who's drawing that for us. And so this is all around this huge story that we want to tell about a main character named Danica Dyer. And right after I get back from this convention, it will be the first time that I start working on it full time, because I've just been doing it in my spare time. It's been sort of a hobby up to now. So I'm really super excited to finally be able to put a lot of attention to it and see where we can take it.
Well, the company I'm working for, Space Nation, is now officially a NASA partner, and we are gamifying the astronauts training experience. So basically we are taking the training curriculum of real-world astronauts and converting as much of it as we can into playable games on mobile phones. And basically gamifying science, gamifying the astronaut experience and so on. and it has been a blast. For somebody who always wanted to be an astronaut but never could, this is the closest thing I will ever get to that. And even if everything would go to hell, I have talked to real astronaut trainers about real astronaut training, and it's like the life goals achieved. And nothing and no one can ever take that away from me.
That's nice.
Yeah, I'm actually finishing some game music arrangements. They formed this kind of orchestra here in Finland, game music collective, and they are doing a gig in Finlandia Talo in a couple of weeks. Actually, I think the deadline is tomorrow. Yeah.
So you're going to...
Yeah, I still have. I've been writing a lot. That's the reason I'm a bit tired. But
You're going to the Dead Dog tonight?
yeah, probably. Yeah. But after that, I'm gonna take a couple of months off, and I have a new project starting in January. So finally, some time for myself. I probably will do music anyway, but.
So try the cat with the sky on.
Ah, yeah, I will try that.
That's for 2 months. And now we have time for audience questions. So if you have a question, raise your hand and you will get a mic so that everyone hears the question.
Just a quick question. When you're working with other people from around the world, how do you find communicating with them? Because I now live in Finland permanently, and trying to communicate with Finnish people is actually really difficult, especially when I work on games or videos. How do you guys find it?
I work, probably about half of the people on my team at Games Omniverse. We work remotely, and so we have a weekly meeting on Skype. We also use, we basically use a chat program so that we can talk to each other just about any time, and we catch each other online and stuff like that. And we use a program called Basecamp, which is online, where you can do sort of project management, and it's almost like a forum, but not. So you can post pictures and stuff of what you're working on and get feedback from the rest of the team and that sort of thing. So we use about 3 methods to keep in touch with each other, and well, 4 really, because email as well. And we just try to really stay on top of all of that and talk as much as possible. It's been my experience that if they're not English speakers or if they're in a majorly different time zone, Basecamp works really well, because then they can answer whenever they want, same as email. And writing is always a lot easier if there's possibly a language difference.
I use a lot of Skype, and the biggest challenge is the time zones between the US and particularly West Coast where I'm, and Germany, which is 9 hours, is it behind? No, it's ahead. Yeah. So, so that's a little bit challenging, but it usually we can figure it out.
Yeah, Skype is cool. I work for the Albion Online, and we were having like weekly Skype sessions, and we talked about the direction, and then I also got to learn how they approach music, and they showed all the game demos on Skype, and it worked very well, I think. And there.
Well, first I would like to point out that Finnish people are very easy to communicate with.
But you are wrong.
But that being said, Space Nation is working with a network of subcontractors, and most of them are from Eastern Europe, so there's not much time difference. And therefore, even though it would be nice to have them face to face, and there may be sometimes issues with understanding each other's languages, Slack and this kind of constant verbal communication does make up for it quite a bit. And also try to convey all the main points that you wanted to realize in writing, so that you have ample documentation that they can look back on, preferably with some pictures if you can. have the time for that. Then when you're moving outside Europe, then the time zones become an issue, and we do have a lot of, for example, the NASA contacts in Texas, Houston, which were underwater for a while now. And I'm eternally grateful that they managed to get up 5:30 in the morning to talk to us during our office hours and not the other way around. So thanks to them. But in that case, they are good. It's a good method when you're basically using them for expert advice. It wouldn't work if they would be involved in constant day-to-day iterations and development.
Do you have any favorite genre you like working on when you're doing stories or music on games?
Genre. So for me, Guild Wars 2 is very, very fantasy oriented, but I've always tried to inject horror into it as much as possible because horror is what I enjoy most. So, and you know, I say horror, but it's not like the really gross, bloody horror. It's more the suspenseful horror. So that's my favorite genre.
I like science fiction most. That's yeah.
Detail.
I would have liked to say that fantasy first and science fiction second, but the problem is that these days everything has been subdivided into so many genres that it's giving me a headache, so let's call it all speculative fiction.
Ah, yes, there you go.
Hi. A question for composers mainly. How did you in the past, or how do you now start composing work? Did you, for example, Death Rally or Tracon, did you start with the tracker, or did you start with the real instruments that composing work?
Yeah, I think I mentioned that earlier in my talk the other day that I had a tape recorder running all the time when I was jamming on the keyboard, just with different sounds. So that's usually where I got the basic ideas, and then later I would go and first create some samples that I need for the piece, if I know which chords and stuff like that, and then put it together. So really the work starts, for me, was a simple, sometimes it's just a piano sound.
Yeah, like what you said, and sometimes try to find a nice, with trackers, I started also working with those because that's the cost-effective way. At least back then you didn't have to buy a lot of synthesizers and such to do music that actually sounded quite good. But also approach it the way you said it, and sometimes just to make an interesting sound set and think if that would generate something interesting.
I've done that too.
Yeah.
Hi, I had a question. When you're working, what kinds of things make you focus really hard, and what keeps your creative motors running? So when you work, do you just like to sit on a computer and try to focus as intensively as you can, or do you like walk around the house or dance around and get some water to drink and play with fidget spinners?
Naked.
Right.
Dance around naked.
It's for me. It's particularly when I become hyper focused when there's a deadline. So that's usually where like everything else takes second stage, and I'm like really focusing on getting it done.
Yeah, because I guess you can keep the parts moving as long as you have time, and when the deadline comes, then you just have to lock it in. So then usually you just have to sort of start actually making decisions.
I'm pretty lucky because I naturally focus really well, but there are certain things that I need in order to focus, and that's complete silence, almost complete silence. I'm not one of these people that listens to music while I write or anything like that. I also have to be comfortable. I have to be physically comfortable. So I have a recliner at home that I sit in with my laptop on my lap, and then my kitties can be wherever. And that's when I can really get in the zone and really start creating intuitively, as opposed to thinking about it and consciously manipulating. It can just start to flow.
Well, if I'm working at home, I used to listen a lot of music when working, but these days I actually go with that total silence option. Then when working in an office, I have these bouts of intense concentration that are punctuated by these what I call information gathering missions, when I basically roam around the office looking for unsuspecting victims, talking about whatever. Yeah, it seems to work. I don't know if it's the optimal solution, but it's the one that...
If I could expand on this question, do you usually work from home or do you have an office, and which do you prefer?
I'm probably the most unusual here because I'm freelancing, and I sold my house, and my wife and I decided to adopt a nomadic lifestyle, so we travel around in a motorhome, and I have my mobile studio in there. It's pretty tricked out, so I'm very happy how it works out, and then I can park it like at a nice scenery and get inspiration that way.
That's pretty cool.
Anyways.
Yeah, I just have a room in our apartment where I work. I have all the notes and all the stuff there, so I can sort of, I don't know, it might be a good idea to get an actual external place where you go and work there. It would be easier to differentiate your personal and your work life, I guess, a bit more, but it works nicely now too.
Yeah, I guess we writers need less hardware than composers. So I do have a home studio for writing, which is basically a man cave with a very powerful desktop computer. And then I have another workstation at work, which I maybe should call my client, because I'm actually also a freelancer despite being the lead game designer in that project. It depends on what I'm doing. If I'm doing something that involves meetings and interaction with other people, then it's definitely better to do it in the office. If on the other hand I know that it's going to be a long writing about on something and I don't want additional distractions, then I'm staying at home and the rest of the world can burn for all I care.
Yeah, at ArenaNet we have these ginormous rooms of people in them. About 50 people, I guess, I'm guessing the numbers. But we all sit in there together, and so it gets very loud at times. And so fortunately, ArenaNet has always understood that people doing deeply creative stuff, like the writers, sometimes they just need to work from home. And so they've always been very supportive of that. So it depends entirely on what I'm working on. If I'm working on something that requires, a lot of quiet and actual writing, serious writing, then I'll do it from home. There's times when I need to be with all the other people too, though, because that's just a huge equal part of it. Now that I'm working on my own stuff, I'm always at home.
So next question.
Yeah, hi. This is kind of that writer's block thing. So when somebody asks you, or you know that both music and writing, that this character should make something, and somebody asks you to make this character like now he feels love or something, and you know it for yourself. So how do you make to write or compose that? What is that concrete thing to do? Like what do I have to make him do, or what drum fill should I use? How is it challenging, or how you approach to this problem?
Do you mean if you're given a specific direction on a character or on a piece of music? Is that what you mean? I'm not sure I understand.
Yes, I mean like for them to make the story work, this character have to do something or have to feel some emotion, and you know what it needs, like in your mind, but you don't know what is the concrete thing to how to show it to the player. How do you find that?
It requires a lot of imagination, and that's also partly why it has to be so quiet when I work, because I actually, it's kind of hard to describe, but when I get in the zone, when things are really flowing well, I actually sort of get in the characters in a way, and theoretically, everything leading up to that moment, that where this certain thing has to happen, has all made sense and actually led to that point. If it seems a little strange, then I probably need to back up and figure out how else to get to that point. But it's a lot of very internal imagining and thinking about the characters, and there's also technical aspects to that as well. Plotting and planning and progressing the story, progressing the acts, if you want to call them acts, through the storyline. Having it well planned in advance helps a lot.
The only thing I would add to that is that, of course, a lot depends on the visual representation of the game itself. So the game contains a certain palette of tools that you can use to convey emotion. And even though I can write anything I want, whatever I write has to be achievable with those tools. And that's often actually a collaborative work with some graphic designer, that if we want to, for example, using facial expressions, convey a certain kind of emotion, what would be that facial expression? And we are writers, we are not the visual artists. So there are experts for that who will then look at our work and try to make them a visual reality.
So, one question. Did we have one up here?
Well, he's walking. I will add to that. On top of what you said, sometimes we're limited by the character animations that we have, and so that's something else we need to take into consideration, especially in Guild Wars 2, where some of the animations are very over the top and hyper expressive and don't really fit in the moment, if you're familiar with the game. And so we just have to make sure that the dialogue carries the emotion.
So, what topic are you most interested in working on? For example, in soundtracks, usually important characters have their own theme songs, and areas/levels have their own theme songs, and important events have their own theme songs. So, is there one category you prefer over others, or are all of them equally interesting?
I always like working out the main theme of the whole game, and also the ending is quite an important piece for me, at least. That's probably my favorite parts of game soundtracks.
I guess so. Everything. I mean, how you accent different things in a game, and how you drive the story forward, if there is a story, and well, usually there is some kind of story always. So I think that's very interesting, the whole overall drama and how you approach it.
I have nothing to add to that.
Yeah, we don't make soundtracks.
So do you have moments where you feel like you have too many good ideas and you're not really sure which one to pick and how to go forward? So what do you do to take control of your imagination, so to speak?
Well, the first answer is oh yes. And the second answer is that I feel that the circumstances usually determine what is ultimately the best option, because if I can't make the decision, then I compare it with the resources and the needs of the project and what I expect the producer will secretly want, even if he's unable to communicate that to me and so on. And eventually the answer usually comes from there. and I don't know. And sometimes you just have to write out multiple scenarios, and then you can see on the paper that okay, this works, this is borderline, and this doesn't. That usually works as well.
Yeah, it's true, and it also helps to have a big team, or even if you don't have a big team, if you're just working on your own, creating your own little indie game or whatever you're doing, have people who can give you feedback. I always have tons of ideas, tons. I have a whole house full of ideas at home, and you just can't pick them all. But eventually, as you start working with them and making different iterations on them, you start to realize which ones actually have value and which ones don't. And so you evaluate and choose the one that's going to hopefully speak to people the best.
Yeah. For me, I mean, if I have a lot to choose from, I just pick one and put the other stuff away for later or some other project. That's fairly easy. Yeah, it's definitely preferred to when you have no ideas.
I never throw an idea away. I keep them always. You never know when one of them is going to decide to poke its head up and be just the right time for it.
Yeah, so never ever burn your old writings.
Yeah, I also record a lot of stuff when something comes up, or write to a note paper. Those do tend to get lost though, but I think it's a good idea to just put everything down, and sometimes you actually, especially if you have a tight deadline, then you can go through your old stuff and wow, this actually could work and go from there.
Let's have the last question.
What is the most difficult thing you have found in your work, like when writing a story or composing a music?
So that's a good last question.
Yeah.
I think everything is hard. If you try to do well things, it's always like hard.
Just part of the creative process that there's frustrations that have to be worked through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had I think similar to what I mentioned earlier, I had projects where things did not go well at all until I took almost like 180-degree approach, and then everything all of a sudden came together. And so yeah, those early times before that clicks is sometimes very challenging.
Yeah, not everything when you're writing makes it past the feedback process, and that can be very discouraging and saddening. But as a professional, you have to sort of learn to accept that and just keep moving on. And sometimes somebody will come to you with an idea that you think is kind of dumb, and you have to roll with it. And at that point, you just do your best work, and you use your skills to the best of your ability. And afterwards, it can feel sad, and it can feel like you didn't get to do what you really wanted to do, but it's just part of the process.
Yeah, there's 100 reasons why things can fail, and this includes game projects, and sometimes failing game projects take the entire clients with them. And it's usually not any individual's fault and so on, but it's a kind of thing that keeps me awake at night sometimes. When I think of some past projects that I've been involved in that they either never got off the ground or never find the financing, or some internal squabbles sank the company or whatever, and even though it's stupid, I keep thinking that would there have been something that I could have done to save things, to do differently, and that's a kind of a slowly growing amount of baggage I'm carrying with me from my working life, and it's not a good thing, and it's the most difficult thing I have to deal with in this profession.
Yeah, I guess especially if you think you have an excellent idea and it's not sort of getting through, and that's sometimes a bit hard to approve by yourself. But I guess that comes with the profession. Then they are deciding and they are designing the overall thing. So you go with it and maybe say that this might be nicely point out that this would probably try to be a bit different or later on. If it doesn't work, then you just work around it and be as good as you can be with the material, I guess.
Thank you. So this is all we have today. Thanks to the audience, you have been wonderful, excellent questions. And thanks to all of the panelists, Jonne, Chris, Angel and Ville. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Also again, thanks to Tracon to invite us, particularly the two of us traveling from the US. And also remembering the concert on Friday was amazing. And thank you again for that. By the way, we have, I think there are some CDs left that we have, so if anybody is interested to still get a CD of the piano album or the orchestral work that we've done, then come after this, where we're going to be, and you can have one and I'll sign it too.
Yeah, and feel free to come and talk to me at any time. Don't be shy. That's why I'm here. I'm really hoping to talk to a bunch of Guild Wars 2 fans. So if any of you are that, then please come talk to me. And Tracon has been amazing to us. It's been really, really awesome. So thank you to all of you organizers, everybody who's been involved in this. You guys down here and down there.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joo, eli